Hey, welcome to the Intersection Digital Recap. My name's Eddie. This is meant to just be a way for you to connect with us in case you miss the service on Sundays. It's not meant to replace the service, or maybe you might want to share this with a friend, but I'm really glad you're with us. We're in the middle of a series called Love Is. This is a 4-week series, so there's 3 other Love Is videos that are up on YouTube. You can click on one of the links. Also got it in the description, and catch up with this series to now. I hope that you find us on Facebook, facebook.com/intersectlife, or find us on Twitter. Also, Crosswalk Options is a way that you can get connected with some of the things that are going on in the community for college students and young adults. So make sure that you check into that and follow that hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Crosswalk Options. And you'll see there's lots of stuff going on in the community for college and young adult people. So week 4, Love Is. We've talked about we've defined love. We've talked about how it relates to us in our life. We've gone into some of the deeper aspects of it. Today I want to go all the way back to the beginning. So I'm going to go into Genesis. Here's the thing. I'm going to go kind of fast because you're on a video, which means you can hit pause. In the Psalms, in the book of Psalms, there's a word called Selah, and it's a pretty mysterious word. Nobody really knows what it means, but they think it kind of means to pause, or to pause for a musical interlude, or to pause to reflect. In any case, it's a break, and we're not too used to that in our society today. We kind of go one thing to the next, and we're like fast food, and we got ADD. So I just want to encourage you that if at any time during this you want to look something up in the Bible for yourself, or if you want to reflect on something that's said, you can just hit pause. Just hit pause and take a second and let it sink in. So I'm going to go kind of fast, but you can always pause it yourself. So here we go, Genesis 2. This is, we've talked about this from the beginning of the intersection, that God is good. He created us good, and at some point things went wrong. So we're not going to go into all of that. We're in Genesis 2. God has already created everything. He's created man, and God's like, hey, let's make man a partner. That would be a good thing. So in Genesis 2:21 it says, so the Eternal put man into a deep sleep, removed a rib from his side, and closed the flesh around the opening. He formed a woman from the rib taken out of the man and presented her to him. Then Adam said this, at last, a suitable companion, a perfect partner, bone from my bones, flesh from my flesh. I will call this one woman, as an eternal reminder that she was taken out of man. I don't know anybody who's ever said what Adam said here, at last a perfect partner. I've never really said that about my wife, that she's perfect, but she is good. I like her, I love her. I mean, my wife's awesome, but you know, saying that somebody's perfect is yeah, I know, can she not see this? Maybe we should delete that part. Okay, verse 24. Now, this is the reason a man leaves his father and his mother and is united with his wife, and the two become one flesh. Okay, this is a big deal. This is talking about sex. So we're kind of scared to say that word in like churches and when we're talking about God, but God created sex, and God made sex to be good. So let's not be scared to talk about it, and that's what God's talking about here. He says the man leaves his father and his mother and is united with his wife, and the two become one flesh. Now that's 2 halves becoming one. The way that was originally intended to be was that once you've become one, you don't become 2 again. God made us to be together, but once we're together, we're not supposed to have other partners. And actually this is an idea that science is finally starting to catch up with. It says it here in Scripture in the first book of the Bible, but science has now found that when you have sex, your body releases a chemical called oxytocin, and that chemical is a bonding chemical. Women release it more than men, but it's meant to make your body know that you're supposed to be monogamous with that person. You're supposed to mate with that person and stay with that person. Your body is actually wired that way. You have a chemical in you that releases, that tells you to stay with that person. And so this is the way God created sex to be, for marriage, for two people to become one and not to become two again. God really explains everything, and we start to catch up with that in science. We discover how God explains everything. So we're going to skip ahead to Genesis 3:16. What happens is Adam and Eve are in this garden. God says, don't eat from any of the fruit in the, God says, eat from all of the fruit in the garden except for this one tree. You can eat from any trees in the garden except for this one tree. Actually, God says that to the man. He doesn't even say that to the woman. The woman wasn't even created when God said that, which is crazy, but we blamed it on the woman. But the woman is the first to eat. So the woman eats the fruit, the man eats the fruit, and then God said, if you eat from this fruit, you will surely die. God says, if you do this, there will be consequences. Not, if you eat from this fruit, I will kill you. He says, if you eat from it, you will. So there's consequences to these actions. So in this passage that we're about to look at, God is starting to hand down those consequences. He's starting to tell them what those consequences are. So God says to the woman in Genesis 3:16, as a consequence of your actions, I will increase your suffering, the pain of childbirth, and the sorrow of bringing forth the next generation. Now here's the big part. You will desire your husband, but rather than a companion, he will be the dominant partner. Some translations say, he will dominate you. So I want to talk to the girls for a minute, because I believe that this explains a big part of your life. Have you ever felt like the desire to have a man kind of supersedes everything in your life? It kind of dominates your life. Maybe you don't feel complete without having a man. Maybe you think, I've got to be married. Like I have to have a husband. I have to find a husband. All my friends are in relationships. I need a relationship. Like this deep desire in you that just doesn't seem to go away. Well, God says it right here. He says this will happen, and He's talking to the woman here. I'm not saying that this doesn't happen with men, but I think this really explains something that happens in women. Because it happens in women, I would say, more frequently than it happens in men. And basically, God created us to fill that desire. But He says, now that this has happened, your desire isn't going to line up right. It's not going to be fulfilled in the right way. But the encouraging thing, I guess, that I found out of this was that God said it right here, so that when you're having those misidentified desires, which we've talked about, when you're misidentifying that desire and you're being dominated by the desire for a man, you could look back and say, oh yeah, God said that. He said that would happen. That's happening in my life right now. But you can recognize it as a misidentified desire, as a wrong desire, or a desire that will never line up. It's never going to completely satisfy. Now, this used to happen to me as well. I was kind of a hopeless romantic. I've shared that before, how I would kind of fall in love with the first girl who would give me any attention. I misidentified my desire quite frequently, and even after I was married, I would put my wife in the position of God. I didn't know that I was doing. I didn't realize I was doing that. But I always, like, my number one prayer would be, God, I want to grow old and die with my wife. Like, I want us to die together so that we can go to heaven and be in eternity together forever. Because that's just what I thought, like we would be together forever. So in eternity, she would be my wife in eternity. She would be my wife in heaven. Then I read this passage and it changed my life because I'd always thought of God as a father figure, God the Father. You know, I never thought of him in a different way. So I read this passage. I'm going to read it to you guys. This really changed my life. It's Matthew 22, verses 29 through 33. I'll give you the backstory. Jesus was doing all this awesome stuff, all these miracles, and the religious leaders didn't really like it. So they would always try to trap him. They would always try to make him look stupid. They would try to, knock him down off his high horse. And so these religious leaders come up to Jesus, and they don't believe in resurrection. They don't believe in heaven. And so they come to Jesus, and they think they've got him tricked. They say, "Hey, Jesus, the law of Moses says that if a man and a woman are married and the man dies, the woman has to marry his brother if she doesn't have any kids." Well, there was a woman who was married to a man. She didn't have any kids and he died, so she married his brother. Well, they didn't have any kids either and he died, so she married another brother. And they didn't have any kids, and this went on and on 7 times. So this woman married 7 brothers and none of them gave her any children. So, then the woman died. Whose wife is she going to be in heaven? Like, which one of the 7? Who gets to have her in eternity? And Jesus says this in verse 29. You're off base on 2 counts. You don't know your Bibles, and you don't know how God works, which is a face. Okay? Then he says this. At the resurrection, we're beyond marriage. As with the angels, all our ecstasies and intimacies then will be with God. This is a big time thought. And this is something that really, it changed everything about the way I saw God. Because I always thought of God as he's supposed to fill the love in my heart for a father figure. But I never thought about God filling my heart with love of my wife. But what this says is that in heaven, God is so good, you're not even going to be worried about marriage. You're not going to need any kind of other kind of love. Like, you're going to be so focused on God because God is going to fill every single need that you've ever had in your entire life. And man, this got me excited about heaven. This got me excited about eternity. But 2, it made me realize that God is supposed to fill all of our desires for love. Not just the father love, but also the mother love. Not just a parent love, but also a lover love. Like my wife or like your husband. And not just that, but also a friendship love or a brother love. All of the loves that you could think that you need, God is supposed to fill those. He's supposed to be that one deep desire. And that's huge. And that really should change everything about the way we see God and the way we spend time with God. I know it has for me. The second thing I want to talk about is that love is sacrifice. All love is sacrifice. And think about this. This goes all the way back to parental love is sacrifice. When 2 parents get together and decide to have a child, they're deciding we're going to sacrifice our time, we're going to sacrifice our resources. They're giving something they don't have to give. It's a sacrifice, but every sacrifice also has a benefit. So a parent sacrifices and nurtures their kid, and the kid grows. You do this in friendship. You sacrifice your own desires for your friend's desires. You make compromises. This happens in relationships. You sacrifice. That's what marriage really is you wanting more for the other person than you want for yourself. You sacrifice all the time. This even goes all the way down to your blood cells. Like, think about that. Like, your white blood cells sacrifice themselves in order that you may be protected from diseases. So there's always a sacrifice, and then there's the benefit. And we've used this verse before, and this is a verse that I know a lot of people are familiar with. It's John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, someone lay down his life for his friend. And that verse is talking about Jesus and talking about how Jesus, God sacrificed by coming into the world. He sacrificed his deity. He sacrificed being God to put skin on and be with us. That sacrifice has benefit. The benefit is we get to know what God's like. By looking at Jesus, we can see what God is like. So he sacrificed his power, he sacrificed his status to become a man and to serve us. That was for our benefit. And then Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross. He died for our sin, all the things that we deserved. He took on himself. That was a sacrifice for our benefit, so that we could know forgiveness, so that we could not know shame. So that you feel guilty for the things you do. Everybody feels guilty for the things you do, but Jesus sacrificed so that you wouldn't feel guilty anymore, to make us right with him. So there's this idea of sacrifice and benefit. And I know that a lot of times people respond to this by saying, okay, God sacrificed something for me, I've got to sacrifice something for him. But here's something that's really big about that. You can't give God anything that God can't already get for himself. Like think about that. You can't give God your works. Like I've heard people say, I'm going to sacrifice my time for God. I'm going to sacrifice the things that I'm doing for God. I'm going to work for God. Like God created the planets. God created the stars. Like God can make anything. There's nothing you could give God that he doesn't already have. The only thing that you can give God that he doesn't already have is your trust. That's the only thing you can give God, because he won't force you to love him. He won't force you to trust him. So the only thing you can give God is your trust. The thing about that is it's a sacrifice that also comes with a benefit. Luke 9:23, this is what we're going to close with. He said to them all, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves," sacrifice, "and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it." This is the only sacrifice that also has a benefit for yourself. See, it's always been about trust. Even back in the garden when God said, you can have any of this, just don't eat from this one. It was all about trust. God wanted our trust in that. And that's what this verse is. It's God saying, hey, will you not think that you know what's best for your life? Would you deny that? Would you sacrifice that? And would you just trust me that I created life, and if I created life, that I know what's best for you, and I have what's best for you in my interest. I have your interest in my interest. Like, that's what I want. Would you trust that? That's what God's saying here. If you try to take your life, if you try to run your life on your own, you're going to lose it. You're going to end up losing it. What good is it, verse 25 says, for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very self? So what God is saying is that He's worthy of your trust, and He's proved it over and over again. And He's saying if you sacrifice what you think is best for your life and you trust Him, that then and only then will you gain life. The last part of that verse, in verse 26, Jesus says some pretty harsh words. He says, whoever is ashamed of me, I will be ashamed of them when I come. Now, Jesus isn't saying I'm going to deny you, I'm going to not love you. Jesus is saying if you're ashamed, I'll be ashamed. And what I really think Jesus is pointing to in that is that if love is real, if love is legit, if love has really settled into your heart, it's something you share. It's not something you're ashamed of. It's not something you hold back. It's something that you share. So if love is real, love should be shared. And I know that you know lots of people who don't know the love of God. And God calls us to share that love with those people. And so that's my challenge for you. My other challenge is maybe if you've never, denied yourself, taken up your cross, if you've never put your full trust in God, that you would just stop this video and go get alone. Turn off your cell phone. Turn off any distractions. Just get alone with you and God, and just let God deal with you inside. You can say a prayer real similar to this. God, I don't know how to do my life on my own. I need you. This is how I prayed. I was like, God, I can't do this on my own. If you're ready to come into my life, I need you to take control, because I can't do it on my own. I trust you. If you're real, take control of my life. I'm trusting you with my life, with my everything. And that'll be the first step in the rest of your life. And if you do that, then you really need to tell somebody who also is walking that out. You need to tell somebody that trusts God, and you need to join with them and let them help you to walk it out. There's also a Spotify playlist that you can click on in the description here. It's got worship songs that we did the night of this message. Get those in your heart as well. And next week is going to be really exciting. So invite your friends. The intersection was created as a way for you to share that love. So if it's real, it should always be sharing. Thanks for being with us.